Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I have here an article that I think makes my point, or at least reinforces something that I said on a few occasions, which is if you threaten your enemy with repercussions, horrible repercussions, the enemy will dig its heels in and will fight harder. If you tell them, well, once I beat you, I'm going to take your wife, your children, I'm going to enslave them, I'm going to do this, you're going to pay forever, and so on, I think gives incentives to the enemy. Or if you call the enemy, you dehumanize the enemy, and the enemy finds out. Again, is going to feel hatred towards you, is going to fight with more passion, let's put it this way. Instead of just leaving things die out, or faking inactivity, or a kind of like a laziness. And it's also a principle in fight expressed by many authors. One of them was Miyamoto Musashi in his book Gori no Sho, the Book of Five Rings. And not only I realized that in my previous life of fighting, that you pretend that you are tired, you pretend that you are inactivity, and by pretending inactivity, the other person will get expose himself and will attack recklessly, trying to finish you off. And when you are like that, then you jump on them and deliver the knockout strike. So this is the principle. It worked in real life, just so you know. It's like, for instance, a football team. Defense plays like, oh my God, you guys are overwhelming us. And then you calculated defense, and then you just counterattack and score. Then you guys gotta work harder. So in this case, I think by pushing the Russians, I'm talking about the Ukrainian mass media and whomever controls information over there, by pushing the Russians into waking them up, instead of just pretending, oh, you're winning, and then bang. So I have here an article with a former Zelensky advisor, and he says the exact thing. One of the Ukrainian mistakes was dehumanizing the Russians, and Russia Today obviously will provide a few examples. All right, so this article comes from Russia Today, as I said. It is from August 13th, 2023. Dehumanizing Russians has backfired. Ex-Zelensky aide. The hateful behavior of quote-unquote collective Ukrainians has gifted Russian troops more purpose to fight, Alexei Arestovich has claimed. A general Ukrainian effort to dehumanize Russians has become the main quote-unquote mistake made by the country in the ongoing conflict, Alexei Arestovich, a former advisor to the President Vladimir Zelensky, said on Sunday. Obviously, I agree with him because I said this on multiple occasions, and I think it's just normal. So, speaking to journalist Yulia Latinia, Arestovich condemned the systematic effort to dehumanize Russians, stating that the strategy has clearly backfired and purportedly only gave Russian troops more reasons to fight. And I'm quoting, "The main thing we did was to allow ourselves to dehumanize the Russians. This is our main mistake. At first we held on, and then we delved into all that with pleasure. The collective Ukrainians, I mean. We allowed that to pour into the internet." Arestovich stated. He added that such behavior gave average mobilized Russians, not professional soldiers, an excellent motivation to fight, end quote. The former aide to the Ukrainian president didn't elaborate on when, quote-unquote, collective Ukrainians had switched from what he called behaving like a European nation, end quote, to demonizing Russians with ordinary citizens in a neighboring state, creating an image of an orc, end quote. From the early days in the conflict, Ukrainian propaganda has been actively portraying Russian troops as primitive savages. who'd never seen basic home appliances, toilets, or even paved roads. This information also alleged widespread looting as well as torture and rape of Ukrainians. Well, I'm pretty sure that happened in both and always, actually, because that's the way we, put us in extreme situations, and we might react like what we are, savages. The charges against Russia were amplified by top officials, among them the then human rights chief Lyudmila Denisova, who ultimately was sacked after most of the rape claims turned out to be fake. Senior Ukraine officials have reportedly made hateful remarks about Russians during and even well before the years of hostilities between the two countries turned into recent fighting. For instance, Alexei Danilov, and I have to show you this guy because this is one of my friends. Here he is right here. I made a video on this when he made the claims I'm going to quote here, this guy right here. And also you have this person here, this person who is a transgender. This person was appointed somehow Kiev military spokesperson, just like that. Just showed up in Kiev, I don't know, a month ago and was appointed. And this person also made some comments about what the Russians are and so on. So I'm gonna start here with, for instance, it's right here. For instance, Alexei Danilov, the head, let me just don't bother you with it, I will bother with my face. For instance, Alexei Danilov, the head of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, claimed earlier this month that a presence of humanity, quote unquote, was the key difference between Ukrainians and Russians. And I'm quoting Danilov now. I'm fine with Asians, Danilov said, but Russians are Asians. They are a completely different culture, vision. Our key difference from them is humanity, end quote, Danilov stated on Ukrainian TV, which itself became a heavy censored, state-approved, quote-unquote, broadcasting marathon amid the hostilities. The top presidential aide, Mikhail Podolyak, has also repeatedly made hostile remarks, claiming the Russians are universally, quote-unquote, hated by Ukrainians, as well as voicing calls on daily basis to, quote-unquote, kill Russians by the thousands. He didn't make on daily basis this kind of calls. I know he made it one time, as far as I know, but I know it was not made on a daily basis. But hey, this is Russia Today, okay? You do like this, the same as Ukrainska Pravda and Ukrinform and the New Voice of Ukraine and the Kiev Independent. From this, they and if you know something about it, you can catch them with exaggerations or with lying by omission. Moscow has for years voiced outrage over rampant Russophobia in Ukraine, arguing it has been fostered by Kiev into a state-level policy. Yes, unfortunately, the Ukrainians are destroying, and forbidding Pushkin poets, not only Pushkin, but Dostoevsky and others are pushed aside. They changed names of streets, and I think it's you can say, well, that's not, but hey, that shows a little bit of a extreme behavior or ideology. And when I say, well, it can't be because Zelensky is Jewish, this is like saying there's no racism, let's say, in United States because Obama, black man, was the president. It's kind of like the same thing. Well, you're always gonna have incidents, but the same. Look what's going on regarding Zelensky and his Jewishness, and can't be like that. Look what's going on right now in Israel with Netanyahu and his clique. They're called by these guys extreme right government. Well, extreme right is kind of like that kind of guys. But how can they be when they are Jewish? Israelis, however you want to call it, okay? So again, these are just weasels. If you pay attention, you realize that these guys are just trying to change our vision in a wrong way. Ukraine has passed laws severely restricting the use of Russian language in education, media, and everyday life, with the situation deteriorating even further after the conflict between the two nations escalated to military action in February 2022. So, I think this guy is right, not because he says what I say, what I think is accurate. I covered those statements made by these guys. No apologies, no explanations after that. I think Podolyak came and said, well, this is what I meant, and something like that. Well, he was the only one. The other two did not apologize. And indeed, if you remember, just to mention, this is not a, well, just because the Ukrainians are like that. No, look, for instance, in the First World War. Remember Kaiser Wilhelm II? I think it was Wilhelm II, the Kaiser of the Germans. He was portrayed as a criminal with the bloody axe and all that and so on. And the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians portrayed the enemies the same way. That was in 1918, 17, 16. I remember the Second World War, how Adolf and how the other guys were portrayed. But still, you have certain armies that behaved a little bit better than others. Or at least some people behaved better when they had the upper hand versus others. That's true. I will give you one example that I read. I can't remember where in the hell I read this one. It was a long time ago, but it was I think it was an American pilot who was shot down by the Germans over Yugoslavia in the Second World War. And he was recuperated, saved, whatever, by the resistance in Yugoslavia with Tito, the Croat. And this the American pilot remembers, and I think he wrote a book or he reported it, that he said that at one time these guys in the resistance, they caught some German soldiers and they cut their noses, the Germans' noses, ears, and genitalia, and then they killed them. And he said, I read about these things in history books, about the medieval times, that such things occurred. But that occurred in Yugoslavia in 1944 or 43. So it's not like the medieval times. Now, I don't remember, for instance, the Americans or the French or maybe the Germans, the British doing such a thing. I'm pretty sure there were some situation when they probably did atrocities. I mean, the biggest atrocity, I don't want to put it that way, but the big atrocity was the dropping of 2 atomic bombs on 2 civilian cities now, cutting someone's nose and destroying 2 cities, about more than 200,000 people in 2 seconds. Which one would you rather have? I would rather have none. But if you had to choose that versus it's clear which one we would pick if we had to pick. I hope we don't. My point is, we are in essence what we are, and under pressure we will behave like what we are. Anyway, I made my point here. And I agree with Arestovich, and I think he agrees with me. Unfortunately, he has the courage to say that, but it's kind of too late now. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.